Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 70, Make Room for Gloom. The episode begins with Ash and the gang back in Pallet Town, back from the Seafoam Islands, with it being morning time, evidenced by the fact that a Dodrio has just caught, which was customary for Pallet Town, along with the fact that Brock was cooking breakfast, being eggs, and the fact that Ash was asleep. Sure, he could be sleeping during the day, but he usually was sleeping during the morning time. His sleep was getting interrupted though, as Mr. Mime, doing its cleaning as now usual, was sweeping around Ash's room, sweeping Ash's face along with Pikachu's in the process. When it sweeps Pikachu's face, Pikachu gets startled, and it causes it to unleash a huge electric attack, which shocks Ash and alerts Ash's mother, who was in the garden. It also wakes up Misty, who was sleeping above Ash in the bunk above. Ash and Misty then go down to where Brock was cooking and have some breakfast, but Ash's mom then comes in from the garden and accuses Ash of not training for the Pokemon League, stating that if he wasn't going to be training, then he should make himself useful and help out in her garden. Ash obviously doesn't want to help out in a fucking garden and do chores, and proceeds to lie that he was in fact going to train for the Pokemon League after all, and was going to go up into the mountains to do so with his friends, so he was busy. Misty, obviously not aware of this due to it being a lie, questions if they were really going to the mountains, leading Ash to quickly pull her aside and warn her not to blow his cover, explaining that she just should play along. Ash and his friends then exit the house, claiming that they were going to the mountains, but Ash then reveals to his friends the fact that he was just lying to get out of garden work, though stated that he would rather be training than doing garden work, stating that if he did the garden work anyways, then he would have been left too tired to train. It's at this that he realizes that maybe he should spend some time training after all, and is about to actually go do so, when suddenly his mom, who was working in the garden now, alone, requests that him and his friends go and get him some fertilizer on their way home. Specifically 300 to 400 pounds from the Xanadu nursery. Ash and the gang are startled by Ash's mother, as Ash had been on edge after lying to her, stressed that she would find out, and it's for this reason, and the fear that they would be assigned more work somehow, that Ash and the gang all proceed to run away as soon as Ash's mom requests this, although they still plan to oblige. After a few minutes of running, Ash and the gang very tiredly stop, not being able to run anymore, but fortunately, they had reached their destination, the Xanadu nursery. Ash is immediately reminded of a whole bunch of his childhood memories of when his mom would take him to the nursery, which also causes him to remember the owner of the nursery, informing Brock and Misty that the owner had since left and a new owner had taken over, so he couldn't use his past to get any discounts on the fertilizer, unfortunately. Despite this, Ash and the gang move up to the window of the nursery and look inside before going in. Brock comments on all the beautiful greenery that he could see, but then he realizes that all their beauty paled in comparison to a girl who was also standing in the nursery. Being the simp that he was, he excitedly taps on the glass and informs Ash of her existence, although when Ash looks in and attempts to find her, he can't see her for some reason. Instead, all he sees is a gloom, indicating that the girl had disappeared just as soon as she appeared. As Brock insists that the girl was just there, Ash complains at the fact that he didn't get to see the beautiful girl, leading Misty to then hype herself up as she told Ash that a beautiful girl was right behind him, referring to herself. But this just makes Ash laugh as he says, "Misty, come on, it's clear Brock was hallucinating, but I don't need you hallucinating as well, bitch. What a fire roast." Misty goes to beat his ass as revenge, but then a random-ass dude shows up and reveals himself, and Ash and the gang immediately all stop what they're doing in panic, as they believe the man is holding a flamethrower, but he explains that it was simply a pesticide exterminator, which was a lot more calming than Ash and the gang expected. The man then reveals himself as a worker at the nursery named Potter, and states how it wasn't just a place for flowers, but grass Pokemon as well, as grass Pokemon always seemed to be attracted to all the flowers here, and that's why he had a pesticide killer, so that he could make sure that all the flowers were safe if any Pokemon came by. Hearing that grass Pokemon were attracted to the place, Ash then decides to send out his Bulbasaur and see if that was true, and it definitely was, as Bulbasaur instantly runs off to go smell all the flowers. Ash and Misty run off with him to make sure that nothing bad happens to him, leaving Brock and Potter alone, so Brock takes the opportunity to ask Potter about the mysterious girl that he saw, wanting to make sure that he wasn't hallucinating after all, and Potter confirms that he wasn't, stating that the girl's name was Florinda, and she was set to be the new owner of the nursery. Damn, Brock really likes the nursery or breeder chicks, huh? He is in awe at the fact of what the girl has been able to accomplish, and he excitedly calls her name as beautiful as some of the flowers here. Speaking of the flowers, one of the flowers in the nursery was Pokénip, and it essentially made Pokemon more attracted to certain people or other Pokemon. These were the flowers that Bulbasaur was currently sniffing, with Ash and Misty watching, as Bulbasaur quickly grew a massive blush on its face, and began rubbing itself up against Ash, showing a sign of affection. Bulbasaur then sniffed yet another flower, thinking it was more Pokénip, but then it collapsed out of nowhere. Ash is about to smell the flower himself to see what the problem with it was, but then he's immediately stopped by the beautiful girl that Brock spotted earlier, Florinda, and she warns him not to smell it, as it was something called Stun Stem. She points to a sign describing Sunstem that was coincidentally right in front of where Bulbasaur had passed out, so that was ironic if only they read the sign beforehand. And Florinda states what the sign said, which was that Sunstem was a flower that caused Pokemon to become paralyzed if they smelt it, though it affected humans as well. This causes Ash to panic, stating that his Bulbasaur had already smelt the stun stem, and insinuated that that must meant that it was paralyzed now, which was why it had fallen over. This makes Florinda worry as well, knowing the dangers of having a Pokemon be paralyzed, and she instructs her Gloom, who was also the Gloom that Ash saw earlier, to help carry Bulbasaur into her house so that they can treat it. The Gloom is only able to do so when Ash gives it some assistance, as Bulbasaur is such a heavy bitch. On the way to the house, Ash and Misty inform Brock and Potter of the situation, and they all run into Florinda's house to give Bulbasaur a treatment. This treatment is courtesy of Gloom, being a white substance that it had developed due to spending years in the nursery around the stun stem to the point where it had allowed it to develop an immunity antidote. This antidote is thankfully enough to save Bulbasaur as Bulbasaur wakes up. When Bulbasaur wakes up, it's both due to the Pokénip that it had sniffed earlier, along with its just pure appreciation for Gloom saving it, that it develops a crush on Gloom. The two Pokemon then play together, with Bulbasaur showing Gloom its Vine Whip, and Ash and Misty point out how it appeared like the Gloom was interested in Bulbasaur as well. And as they looked out onto the balcony and saw Brock and Florinda talking, they wondered if maybe Brock and Florinda would become attracted to each other as well, although they obviously already knew that Brock was attracted to Florinda. And come on guys, it's Brock. Do you really think he has a chance with a girl? Meanwhile, as for what Brock and Florinda were actually talking about, Brock had actually put his simping aside for once and was having a serious conversation. Florinda essentially explained to Brock how her family had owned the nursery for a very long time, and it was now her time to take over for her parents, although she doubted that she would be able to give all the grass Pokemon the care that they needed, because she hasn't even evolved her own Pokemon yet, being Gloom, into a Vileplume. Brock clarifies that the reason why Florinda couldn't make her Gloom evolve was simply because Gloom evolved with the help of an evolution stone such as a Leaf Stone, so if she didn't use a Leaf Stone on it, then there was no way that it would evolve. Florinda confirmed, though, that she had tried a Leaf Stone, and Gloom refused to evolve, even with one. So this led her to believe that the reason why Gloom didn't evolve was because she didn't care for it enough, otherwise Gloom would have accepted the Leaf Stone. Brock denies this, though, in an attempt to cheer Florinda up, stating that Gloom always looked happy, and it looked happy right now, and so if it was unhappy, then she would know, there's no way that the Gloom didn't love her. Florinda initially smiled at this, believing Brock, but then she began to doubt him once again, thinking that maybe he was just saying that to be nice. Meanwhile, back inside Florinda's house, Ash and Misty were talking to Porter, as Porter was essentially informing them of everything that Florinda had told Brock. As Brock and Misty had begun questioning at this point how Brock was managing to stay in contact with a girl for so long, and wondered what the fuck they were talking about, so Porter came to their aid. Just then, though, both conversations were interrupted as Professor Oak arrived. How'd he get in, you may ask? Well, it was because he was let in by Porter after explaining to him that he had heard reports of a few people selling fake stones in the area and wanted to investigate. He had done so by this point, and had come back to Porter to report his findings, which was in fact that the Leaf Stone that Florinda had just tried to use to avoid her Gloom was one of these fake stones that were being sold. Florinda and Brock had been called into the room at this point and explained the situation by Oak, and this led Florinda to finally realize that maybe Brock was right, and the only reason why the evolution didn't work was just because the Leaf Stone was a fake. Brock then asks Florinda what the people that sold her the stone in the first place looked like, in hopes that he could find the culprit, and Florinda proceeds to describe a talking Meowth, along with a beautiful bitchy girl, and a blue-haired dude. After hearing these descriptions, it causes Ash and the gang to panic as they realize who was responsible: Team Rocket. We then see Team Rocket still in the nursery, doing their motto. They reveal that the reason why they sold Florinda a fake Leaf Stone was simply so that they would have a way to get into the nursery, as if they showed up and offered her a Leaf Stone, Florinda would have obviously let them inside to accept the stone. And now, they were inside the nursery, meaning that they could accomplish their goal, which was to find rare Pokemon inside, knowing that grass Pokemon were said to be attracted to the place. However, while walking through the nursery, they don't find any Pokemon, and instead find the stun stem plant, and unlike Ash and Misty, actually read the sign, so they find out what it's capable of doing. Knowing that it can now paralyze Pokemon, they determined that they could use it to help them paralyze some Pokemon to steal, and decide to harvest it. Meanwhile, on the balcony at Florinda's house, Florinda was absolutely devastated at the fact that she bought a fake Leaf Stone, but Brock proceeded to comfort her, stating that he would try his best to find her a real Leaf Stone to use. However, Ash butts in and reminds Brock that he has no idea where Leaf Stones are located. This leads Brock to panic, not wanting to upset Florinda even more, and he instead changes his promise to that he'll find Team Rocket and force them to find her a real Leaf Stone. But then Ash reminds him that he doesn't know where Team Rocket was either, and Misty agrees, commenting how Team Rocket always just fucking snuck up on them all the time. They never had to go find them. Brock gets pissed off, as he doesn't want to have to wait for Team Rocket to come across them, as that could take too long. But, as if on cue, the nursery's security cameras start beeping, leading Porter to pull out a laptop and examine them. Porter shows everyone the video footage and informs them that someone was trying to steal the stun stem from the nursery, and when Ash and the gang look at the video, they instantly recognize Team Rocket and rush over to the stun stem area, along with Florinda, Potter, and Oak, but not before Misty makes sure that Togepi is sleeping peacefully, not wanting to put Togepi in danger with Team Rocket. Florinda foolishly tries to reason with Team Rocket with words, pleading them not to take any of the flowers, as they were like her children. Damn, I think that's a little extreme. Team Rocket obviously make fun of Florinda's statement, and Brock acknowledges that it definitely wasn't going to work on them, and instructs Ash that he should have his Bulbasaur use Vine Whip to trap Team Rocket. Ash agrees with this idea, and commands his Bulbasaur to do just that, as he uses Vine Whip, essentially trapping Team Rocket in a rope-like thing. Team Rocket are only frightened for a millisecond, though, as they then smile, revealing that, although they were tied up, they were still confident that they were going to win. Ash and the gang questioned why this was, as literally nothing was happening. They were just sitting in silence at this point, waiting for Team Rocket to reveal the trick they had up their sleeve. This gets Team Rocket mad, as they expected Meowth to show up by now, and they absolutely scream their lungs out, demanding that Meowth get out there. He eventually does, revealing the reason that took him so long to come out was because he was collecting some more of the stun stem, and gathering it all into a container. He then threw this container at Ash and the gang, and an orange powder comes out, causing them all to cough, along with Potter, Oak, and Bulbasaur. Florinda, who was unaffected due to staying back when Bulbasaur began its attack, being scared of being injured, immediately recognized that Stun Stem was what came out of the container and warned Ash and the gang not to inhale it as it would cause them to be paralyzed. Unfortunately, by the time she warns them, they've all already inhaled by now. I mean, do you just expect them not to breathe for a second? Meaning that they were all paralyzed and couldn't move, including Bulbasaur, which meant that his vines that were still around Team Rocket immediately retracted, as Bulbasaur couldn't move them anymore. This allowed Team Rocket to be free and steal Pikachu, as there was pretty much no other Pokemon in the nursery worth stealing. Brock then yells at Florinda that her and Gloom should do something to stop Team Rocket, since they were the only ones who could, and Florinda initially refuses because she's so unconfident in herself and her relationship with Gloom, but Brock manages to convince her by being like, look, you ran away from Bulbasaur's Vine Whip, and it's because of that you're free. I think you should be helping us. You fucking ran away from an ally Pokemon. No, I'm just joking. He just assured her that Gloom did care for her after all, and this gave her enough motivation to charge down and corner Team Rocket. Jesse and James state how fucking weak Gloom was, and reveal that that's why they didn't bother capturing it, and proceed to send out Arbok and Weezing to attack it. Arbok uses Toxic, and Weezing uses Smog, and together, all the poison creates a huge black cloud around the Gloom. Due to Team Rocket insulting the Gloom earlier, Florinda was unfortunately back yet again to being hesitant to attack, as she blamed herself for Team Rocket not appreciating Gloom, stating that maybe if it evolved, then they would have appreciated it more. Brock immediately calls out how fucking stupid this reasoning was, and that Florinda must know this, and she was just projecting her own self-doubts and trying to put the blame on someone else. This finally actually convinces Florinda to order Gloom to attack, and Gloom proceeds to use Double Team, which ends up confusing the Arbok and Weezing to the point where they try and back away in fear, and when they do, they run into each other, not watching where they were going. And when they run into each other, they assume that what they felt was a Gloom attacking them, so they attack each other, assuming that they were each a Gloom, if that makes sense. They attack each other with a Toxic and Smog, respectively, and as a result, another black cloud of smoke is created, this time surrounding them, and blinding them and Team Rocket. So, now Team Rocket had both smoke around them, and an entire army of Gloom copies thanks to the Double Team. Brock informed Florinda that this meant that Team Rocket was now vulnerable to an actual damaging attack, and suggested she use something more powerful. This gives her the idea to use Gloom's Solar Beam attack, probably its most powerful attack, which would be extra powerful thanks to being in the nursery, and being surrounded by all the flowers. Can I just point out, though, how she hesitates to use the Solar Beam because she's so unconfident yet again, leading Brock to have to remind her that she should be confident yet again? Like, how many fucking times is it gonna take where Brock has to motivate her? Like, damn. But finally, she uses the Solar Beam, collecting energy from the sunlight and flowers, while Pikachu bites Jesse's hand and manages to escape from her and jump onto Bulbasaur's back to safety. Likely able to do this because Jesse was distracted by Gloom getting all the sunlight. Anyways, all the sunlight and energy from the flowers was now gathered, allowing the Gloom to fire off its Solar Beam and send Team Rocket blasting off, to everyone's amazement. Damn, Solar Beam was an OP attack. Gloom then uses its antidote to cure everyone of paralysis, much to Bulbasaur's appreciation, who proceeds to lick the Gloom, showing its affection for it. Man, I really hope Gloom and Bulbasaur get to meet again after this episode. Meanwhile, Florinda and Brock were talking, and Brock congratulated Florinda on successfully utilizing Gloom's skills, stating how Gloom was so powerful that it didn't even need to evolve into a Vileplume. Florinda then replies by stating that she agrees, and that she now felt confident enough to run the nursery, and was going to take over like her parents wanted. However, she stated that although she was confident, she knew that she couldn't manage an entire nursery on her own, and asked for some help from someone to assist her. Brock assumes that she means him, and he turns around to hide his immense blush, not wanting to freak her out or anything. Oh, now you're worried about freaking girls out, Brock, okay. But when he turns back around, expecting to see Florinda, he only sees Ash and Misty, and Florinda had since walked away over to Porter to go talk to him. This confused him, as, he definitely thought that Florinda was going to ask him to stay behind at the nursery. But unfortunately for Brock, she asks Potter, also proposing to him in the process. For one, the fact that a woman was proposing to a guy, man, that shows some real love right there. Damn, that sucks for you, Brock, holy shit. But you should have expected that. Brock is devastated as he fucking collapses in shame, likely never going to be able to get back up again, but Ash only decides to add insult to injury as he states, "Hey, don't worry, Brock, you'll find plenty more girls to reject you." Damn, Ash, you really fucking roasted both Brock and Misty this episode. Ash is then reminded of the entire reason why they came to the nursery in the first place, and tells his Bulbasaur to go retrieve him some fertilizer, which Bulbasaur obliges, as he says goodbye to Gloom. Misty and Oak then remind Ash that he should be training for the Pokemon League, with Misty reminding him that he was planning on training today. But Ash just replies that he would do it tomorrow, as he was too tired. So, ironically, despite not even doing what his mom originally wanted him to do, he still ended up too tired to do any training.